What's up everyone, I'm Gaur and today I'm gonna show you the top 10 tips every colorist uses to make their films look cinematic. But before we get started, according to YouTube Analytics, only a small percentage of you are subscribed, so hit that subscribe button and ring the bell while you're down there to stay up to date with the best color grading tutorials on all of YouTube. Also, this video is sponsored by my favorite look development tool, the Secret Sauce DCTL, but more on that later in the video. So starting with tip number 1, this is the most important thing for every single project: color management. I'm telling you, every colorist uses this management and it's really simple. So I have these clips on my timeline filmed with different cameras, but they look really washed out. That's because they're filmed all with the log profile. This is great because with log we get more bit depth, and more bits is always good. So some do it with project settings, but pro colorists always do with nodes, as I've seen, so that's what I'm going to show you today. So first up, open up your project settings, color management, and make sure your color science is set to DaVinci YRGB. The other settings don't matter because we are doing it in nodes. Search for color space transform, drag it onto the first node, and this is where things get a bit more complicated, but don't worry, I'll walk you through step by step. So the input color space and gamma should match up with your camera. For this shot, it's RE wide gamut 3 and log C3, but if you're not sure which one's correct, don't worry, just choose RE log C3 because, well, I'm no color scientist, but like all of these charts of different logs, like they look similar enough, so we can just fix the differences in color correction later. And then set the output color space to Rec 709, and you should set the output gamma to gamma 2.2, or I tend to actually set it to Rec 709A because I've heard that that helps with the gamma shift problem on Macs, so use that tip as an extra. Then set tone mapping to DaVinci and gamut mapping to saturation compression, and the rest of the settings just leave as they are. And now if we look at the before and after, I don't know how people graded before this color management thing. Anyways, just copy paste this node to all of your clips and make sure to change the input color space and gamma to whatever camera the clip was filmed with. Now on to tip number 2. I learned this just the other day, but it changed how I grade. So linear gain. So when you're balancing shots, instead of using offset or the HDR tools, just right click on your node and set the gamma to linear. And now just use gain to change the brightness and white balance of the shots. Yes, this will give you better, more realistic corrections. Now on to tip number 3, correcting skin tones. Well, the skin tones are the most important part of every shot and you should balance them first. But how do you know when they're correct? Well, Resolve has this scope called vector scope, and if you go into the settings and enable the skin tone indicator, well, that will show you exactly what's correct. So now using linear gain that I just learned, I'm going to push the skin onto the line, and when it's sitting on there, that is perfect every single time. And to make sure that I don't accidentally move it off the line when correcting the rest of the shot, well, I'll make a separate node for correcting the rest. Now, choose the qualifier. I'll drag my mouse over the skin tones and hit this invert button. This means that whatever I do in this node, it will not affect the skin tones and they will stay exactly perfect on the line. Also, if you are enjoying this video, make sure to smash that like button. Now, the next 3 steps will be all film emulation, because that's what cinematic is about. So first, to get that cinematic film look, Resolve has some built-in film LUTs. So because LUTs set the overall look, you should always put them as the very first node. Or well, because we're using color management, I'll actually create a second node after the first one, and that's where I will put the LUT. Now open that LUT browser, look for film looks, and try them out. I like the Kodak 2383 best, the D61 to precise, and this is just giving such nice contrast and density, but at first it might give a bit too much, so just go into the key panel and turn the key output gain down to taste. Second, film has this orange glow around highlight areas that you may have noticed. That's called halation. Thankfully, Resolve comes with a built-in OFX just for that, so search for halation, put it on your node, and these are the settings that I like to use on all of my projects. So just copy paste these and you'll be good to go. Finally, with film emulation we have grain, and once again Resolve thankfully has a built-in film grain OFX, and for whatever reason YouTube doesn't show grain that well, so I'll just crank it up a bit more than I usually do. This is true film emulation. And now that we're done with film emulation, a quick coffee break. And on to tip number 7. Now let's talk about saturation. There are many ways of doing it, but my favorite is using this LAB color space. Just create a new node, set the color space to LAB, and disable channel number 1. Now your contrast knob acts as saturation. Isn't that magical? So just crank that saturation with the contrast knob, and well, the skin tones are a bit too saturated, so I'll just bring those down with the normal saturation knob, because the normal saturation knob is great for desaturating. Now, a quick note about this video sponsor. The new secret sauce DCTL is the only color grading plugin you need to set yourself apart from other colorists. It includes 14 completely custom different filters that are custom crafted to work even for the most demanding of color grading jobs. Here's the before and after of my 3 favorite filters. First off, the cinematic tint. Second, cohesion harmonizer. And of course, everyone's favorite, matrix. The list price is $999, but the first 1,000 of you to use the link in the description will get 99% off. And not only that, you will also get my exclusive cinematic LUT pack that won't be available ever again anywhere else. And also, you will get an all expenses paid course about how to use the secret sauce plugin. So what are you waiting for? Hit that link in the description because it will change your career. Now, back to the video. Tip number 8. Control panels. If you want to become a pro colorist, you need to get yourself some control panels. The mini and micro panels, which honestly, like, this is way better than getting one of those advanced panels, because, you know, the advanced panel has 4 trackballs, I have 6, so that's like 1.5 times better. And then also I have a Stream Deck to, you know, really get to those shortcuts. And on to tip number 9. You need a calibrated monitor. Essentially, it doesn't matter which display you buy, but you have to calibrate it. Some use these weird probes, I think called color meters, but I found a cheaper way. So in your Resolve, just add a color generator OFX, set it to red, and now all you need is a color checker. Now this one's by Calibrate, so it's quite expensive, but you can get a cheaper one off AliExpress and it'll work totally fine. And all you have to do is just put it on the monitor and, you know, use the built-in monitor settings to match those up. So easy as that. And finally, tip number 10, the one you have all been waiting for. Stop watching YouTube videos like this one. There are so many people who call themselves colorists out there on YouTube and try and teach it to others without actually understanding the subject matter. Thankfully, there are some professional colorists on this platform who are generous enough to share their knowledge. On YouTube, I can recommend Colin Kelly, Darren Moston, Frenchy Color Grading, and Douglas Dodson, to name a few. Outside of YouTube, Blackmagic Design also hosts online workshops for free. If you have the budget to pay for training, I can also recommend mixinglight.com and TAC Resolve training. The main thing is to not follow a single trainer blindly, but see how different colorists work and understand why they do things one way versus another. I'm Gaur. Happy April Fools.